Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. We'll be right back with today's guest, but first, let's hear from our podcast sponsors. We want to thank Final Forms for their support of the Educational AD Podcast. Final Forms is the industry leader in registration, but you got to know this. Final Forms is more than just registration. Final Forms is a team, it's technology, and it's a service that serves schools with compliance, communication, and risk management solutions. Final Forms can help your stakeholders with mobile accessibility and reminders for parents about policies, about physicals, and all the forms for athletes. Can help with team communication, can help with attendance, and even certification management for coaches. And for ADs, Final Forms can help with eligibility, with rosters, and with all the reports that come across an AD's desk. Plus, it does this in secure language translation and ADA compliance. It's time for you to talk with a team that's walked in your shoes. To take the next steps and find out what Final Forms can do for you and your school, go to finalforms.com/Jake. That's finalforms.com/Jake and find out exactly what the Final Forms team can do for you. We also want to thank Violet Defense. Violet Defense is dedicated to protecting our world from germs by bringing the power of UV disinfection to everyday spaces. Their patented technology enables them to harness the power of the sun to incorporate ultraviolet light into products and environments like never before. Whether you're ready to implement existing products, or if you'd like to explore researching and developing a custom deployment of their technology for your school, Violet Defense has the solutions and the experience you need. Go to violetdefense.com for more information about their great products. We also want to thank Sideline Interactive. You know, it's becoming harder and harder to fund an athletic department these days, but Sideline Interactive's indoor scoring tables and video boards can generate $10,000 or more every year, while also creating excitement in the gym and the ultimate game day experience for your athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or call 832-786-0302 to schedule a live web demo and see their tables and boards in action. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com for more information. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com and see exactly what their fantastic products can do for you. We also want to say thanks to Wall of Fame by Vital Signs. You know, they are on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. They provide a variety of interactive touchscreen video consoles, along with an extensive library of templates to make it easier than ever to recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. For ideas on how to showcase your school's diverse history, along with your proudest moments, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Or to learn more and get started with your digital Wall of Fame tribute, call them at 614-981-3589, or you can email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. That's sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. We also want to thank Huddle for their support of the Educational AD Podcast. At Huddle, we power sports. Over 180,000 teams, including some of the best in the world, use Huddle to elevate the performance of their teams using video and analytics. Huddle's the complete performance platform. They have online tools, mobile and desktop apps, smart cameras, analytics, and a whole lot more. Huddle's also built for every level of play, from club and youth teams all the way through high school and college programs, and even the pros use Huddle to help their athletes play at the highest level. You're in pretty good company with over 6 million users, including your student athletes, a lot of their parents, and the coaches of the teams you're trying to get to recruit your kids. If you want to find out more about what Huddle can do for you and how your school can become a Huddle school, go to huddle.com and talk to their professionals. Remember, at Huddle, We power sports. We also want to say thanks to Hometown Ticketing, the leading digital ticketing provider to schools and colleges. You can find out more about what Hometown Ticketing can do for you by going to hometownticketing.com. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. And we want to thank Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack for sponsoring the Educational AD Podcast Athletic Toolbox segment. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack also connects you with the 95% of the parents and the players who really love your program. And it gives them a voice to help demonstrate the importance that a positive athletic experience has for them. Go to athleticsurveys.com and check out their testimonials, and then give them a call at 1-800-738-6466, or you can email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. If you've never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Talk to the folks at Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack and let them show you how to take your athletic program from good to great. Hey, welcome back, everyone, to what I'm going to call a very special edition of the Educational AD Podcast. We're going to go back in time a little bit. We're talking with a good friend and I mean that in every sense of the word, rival, Jim Good. Jim's currently the assistant athletic director at Boca Raton Christian School in Boca Raton, Florida. We met years ago when we were at rival schools. He was at Highlands Christian. I was at Coral Springs Christian. And I tell this story many times. We had the schools, I think, had a very intense rivalry, but it was also, I think, a very good rivalry. I think the ADs and the coaches respected each other very well. We all wanted to win, but at the end of the day, it was high school sports. So Jim Good, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, thank you, Jake. I appreciate that. And thank you for what you're doing for this podcast and the platform, man. I'm honored to be a guest today. And I love hearing the rivalry we had. It's our UNC Duke rivalry, but good memories, good times, and appreciate you bringing that up.
Oh, again, that's just that's a whole nother show, but yeah, you and I know that right. That was a lot of fun. Well, Jim, we always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So give us that 5-minute bio, where you were born, where you grew up, and how your path has, led you to Boca Raton. And we'll talk later about how your path is taking another course.
All right. Love it. Thanks for the opportunity again. As you said, Jim Good, I grew up in a small town just north of Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. So bleed black and gold, Steelers, Pirates, Penguins. We're going to root for Pittsburgh. All right. But Aliquippa was my hometown. Incredible mom and dad who actually both involved in education and coaching. My mom was a Christian school teacher, 25 plus years, second grade. And then my dad was a volunteer basketball coach. So got to see them firsthand, just investing in young people. 3 younger brothers. So grew up 4 boys. So I always tease my mom, a lot of rewards up in heaven. But about the age of 8, fell in love with baseball. That was my first sport that I fell in love with. Went to a small Christian school, so I was able to play a lot of different sports, soccer, ran track, basketball was my love. And then went to a small Christian college, Clearwater Christian. It's no longer there, over in Tampa. Got the opportunity to play basketball and baseball over there. Graduated with a bachelor's degree in physical education, and then started my, teaching coaching career in 1997. And Reg Cook, who hired me as a 21-year-old. And so I'm always grateful for him just seeing the potential, maybe taking a little bit of a risk hiring a young buck like me. But I started teaching 7th grade Bible, PE, started coaching, and then spent 22 years at Highlands Christian down in South Florida, Pompano Beach. Eventually assistant athletic director, boys varsity basketball coach. And then just 3 years ago, major transition in my life, my family. God had it all planned out, and I am just 4.6 miles north of Highlands at Boca Raton Christian School. So been here about 3 years. I'm now the assistant athletic director and the boys varsity basketball coach.
Yeah. Again, my regular listeners hear me say this every time, but I just love listening to the stories and hearing about how those paths, affect us in different ways. Your time at Highlands, and, kind of parallel, my time at Coral Springs Christian Academy, but a lot of changes over those years. Talk a little bit about maybe your time at Highlands and how, you, and of course, Reg Cook was there as the AD, but how y'all built that program and turned it from, let's say that, sleepy Christian school into a powerhouse in a number of sports.
Yeah. Well, thank you for saying that. And I have absolutely give credit where credit's due. And we thank God for the opportunity, the gifts, the talents, the athletes, the students, the coaches that came in. But looking back, I was just learning from Reg. I was so young, in my 20s and my 30s. And I think it starts with a commitment to excellence. And no matter if you're a small school, a big school, finances may be able or going to maybe hold you back from getting certain things. But when you develop relationships with your coaches, you develop relationships with your players, you include your parents, you start building that culture. And you hear that term family, you hear that term culture, and that could be thrown around a lot. But man, as I look back on my time over at Highlands, it was family, it was culture, and learning, the ins and outs about, being a good athletic director. I think it starts with listening to your coaches, trying to not necessarily always making them happy, but let them voice their opinion. I think a lot of times it's easy to just come in and as a leader, be on top of the mountain and start barking orders and saying, get on up here. But I know as followers, we like those leaders that are down in the trenches. They're down with us and they see us sweat and grind. And I know what it's like being a AD at a smaller Christian school, and just a great example. So I learned some of that commitment to excellence, that building culture, listening. And so those are some of the things that come to my mind.
Yeah, I've said many times, listening is such an important skill. And for me, unfortunately, it was a skill, a tool that I learned very late in my career. I feel bad for some of my coaches early in my AD career. But for our listeners, we're visiting with Jim Good. He's the assistant athletic director at Boca Raton Christian and a good friend. We're going to take a quick break and then we'll be back. Please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. Hey, we want to thank Final Forms for their support of the Educational AD Podcast. Final Forms is the industry leader in athletic registration, but you got to know this. Final Forms is more than just registration. Final Forms, it's a team, it's technology, and it's a service that serves schools with compliance, communication, and risk management solutions. Final Forms can help your stakeholders with things like mobile accessibility, reminders for parents about policies, about physicals, about all the forms that go with athletics. Final Forms can help with coaches' certification management. And for ADs, it can help with eligibility, with rosters, and all the reports that come across your desk. And it does this with secure language and ADA compliance. It's time for you to talk with a team that's walked in your shoes. To take the next steps and find out what Final Forms can do for you and your program, go to finalforms.com/Jake. Once again, that's finalforms.com/Jake and find out exactly what Final Forms can do for you. Welcome back, everyone. We're visiting with Jim Good, the assistant athletic director at Boca Raton Christian, longtime coach here in South Florida. Jim, we always ask our guests about the mentors that they've had in their career. In our profession, leadership is so important, and mentorship is certainly part of that. You mentioned, Reg Cook, of course, but who were some of the mentors that you've had that have had an impact on your life?
I'll be glad to share again. Thanks for the opportunity, Jake, to be on your podcast. Appreciate what you're doing. I'll go back. I already mentioned my parents, but boy, mom and dad, sacrifice, love, commitment, just not just parents, role models, mentors. Like I said, my mom was a second grade school teacher for 25 plus years and just saw the sacrifice of balancing being a mom, being a teacher, a godly wife, incredible role model, just taught me skills of, loving unconditionally, loving her kids, loving her biological kids, but then those students that she had, she will have, former students reach out to her today because I realize what an impact a teacher makes on a young person's life. So grateful for my mom. My dad worked in a steel mill. I mentioned I was from Pittsburgh, so he was 25 plus years as an electrician, working night turn, midnight, 4 to 12, and just to give his kids a better life, be able to send us to a Christian school, to be able to do things that we love to do. And then not even realizing as a young 12-year-old, he would work midnight, 12 to 8, and then we would have Saturday morning practice at 9 because we were getting ready for our big game that week. And so think about my dad and the sacrifices he made, and just learned incredible life lessons from my mom and dad. I guess a second individual comes to mind is Bob Kern. Coach Kern was my soccer coach. Had the opportunity, like I said, to play a lot of sports in high school and middle school. I'm so glad I had that opportunity to play a variety of sports, which I recommend to a lot of kids and coaches to be able to play multiple sports. I think that's a good thing. But he just taught me I was more than an athlete. I was actually a person. And I can remember as a 7th and 8th grader, just awkward conversations, but looking back as an adult, what he was trying to pull out of me. He was also our youth pastor. And so he invested in my life. As I went to college, Del Wubena, I had the opportunity to play basketball 4 years for him. He just celebrated his 80th birthday. So he was an athletic director, basketball coach. He's up in South Carolina now. But as I think about Coach Wubena, man, he taught me more than basketball. He taught me how to be a man, taught me how to be a good husband, how to love your wife. And man, he was a competitor. He had enthusiasm, he had energy. And as I think about what I do, it's those relationships that I had with those mentors. And can't leave off Reg Cook, as you mentioned. He was the athletic director, basketball coach at Highlands before me. And he 35, 38, 40. I can't even keep track how many years he's been there, but just showed me, the ins and outs of this profession, his love for basketball, but his love for people, his love for missions, his involvement in the church. And again, just having a balanced life. As you know, as a coach and AD, we are driven, we're passionate, we're focused on winning, and sometimes we let that scoreboard be our identity. And I've learned in my life, man, it's way more than the X's and O's. So he taught me about relationships. He's taught me about the importance of communication and loving your family, loving your kids. So I'm grateful for those mentors in my life. And man, I appreciate you allowing me to share that.
Again, it's just a reminder, I think, for all of us, especially maybe some of our younger listeners, that, we don't get here on our own, that there's somebody there either encouraging us or, having that right combination of patting us on the back and kicking us in the butt, when we need it. So again, for our listeners, we're visiting with Jim Good. He's the Assistant Athletic Director at Boca Raton Christian. We're going to take another quick break, but we'll be back with some more. Please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast.
Yep.
We also want to thank Huddle for their support of the Educational AD Podcast. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. Over 180,000 teams, including some of the best in the world, use Huddle to help their teams play better. Huddle's the complete performance platform. They have online tools, mobile and desktop apps, smart cameras like the Huddle Focus. Of course, there's analytics and a whole lot more. Huddle is also built for every level of play, from club and youth teams all the way through high school and college programs. And even the pros are using Huddle to help their teams play at the highest level. You're in pretty good company with over 6 million users, including your student athletes, a lot of their parents and the coaches of the teams you're trying to get to recruit your kids. If you want to find out more about what Huddle can do for you and how your school can become a Huddle school, go to huddle.com and talk to their professionals. Remember, at Huddle, we power sports. Welcome back, everyone. We're visiting with Jim Good, assistant AD from Boca Raton Christian. Jim, we've already talked about, our relationship, goes back a few years when we were at two different Christian schools, fairly close proximity. And over the years, developed, what I like to call is a very healthy, very intense, but a very healthy rivalry in a lot of sports. You alluded to, good kids and good coaches, and we certainly had those at both of our schools. But for our listeners, we hear so much about the negative side of rivalries these days. What were some of your memories of those years across all the sports? I know, you were involved in basketball as a coach, but what are some of your memories about, why that rivalry, was what it was?
Oh, love it. Going down memory lane here, Jake. I love how you said healthy but intense, because that's exactly what it was, man. And I'll focus on the intense part right now, because I was probably in my mid-20s, early 30s. And as I look back, for about 15 years, I'll be honest, I couldn't wear red. I had a hard time wearing red. I don't have red polos in my closet. I don't have, it's hard to wear a Miami Heat red shirt because it brings up Coral Springs Christian, the Crusaders, I'm telling you. And like you said, though, looking back, it was healthy. It was so good for our schools, our communities. I think Highlands and Coral Springs were, what would you say, 7 miles apart from each other? Fairly close in proximity. And you know what it's like. We would even have, kids transferring or parents that, taught at this school, and then they were, maybe God led them to our school or vice versa. And so I think of football, because I know you were the football coach. You came up with an incredible concept, and I'd love to share that if you don't mind, about
Sure.
the battle for the sword. This was our Stanley Cup. This was the trophy that you had the vision to set up, because the Coral Springs Christians mascot was the Crusaders and Highlands Christian was the Knights. So we're going back to medieval times, and you had, the sword on this big plaque. And I believe you used the Bible verse, the sword of the Spirit. And it was awarded to the winner of the game. And I'll tell you what, we could have went 1-10 that football season, but if we won the rivalry game, it was an incredible year. And I'm sure you could say the same thing. But the winner of that game won the sword. And that was just a great game, the Battle of the Sword. And if I'm not mistaken, I'd have to check my facts. Coral Springs may have won it 6 times and Highlands 6 or 5. It was really close. And so we came up with putting the plaque and the score on that. And I'm telling you, I get goosebumps, Jake, thinking about those games, the scores. And this was our UNC Duke game. The Final Four's coming up, man. I'm thinking about Coach K and making it to the Final Four, and what an intense rivalry. But this was our UNC Duke game, and we just had great crowd support. I'm sure you guys had T-shirt sales and tailgates, and I can remember going to Mullins Park and just like, whoa, there's a lot of people here today. And you're cooking and grilling, and then we'd have you over for a Friday night game. And like you said, healthy but intense. And looking back, it was about competing, wanting to try to win. But now, almost 20 years removed, what a healthy relationship and rival it really was. So thank you for what you did to even, get that going and started. Kudos.
Well, again, as you were going through all those memories, I was tingling just a little bit, because they are great memories. And it's certainly, first of all, on the sword, I had a little bit of help. One of our parents, one of our board members, Ken Holtz, who's no longer with us. He kind of helped with that idea and getting the sword started. And his sons, of course, played quarterback for us. but it extended beyond, as you know, it extended beyond football. My daughter played volleyball and basketball. Those were some intense games. Our son, played all three sports, and our youngest ran cross country. And you guys were developing your cross country and track program, but every Highlands, CSCA game, was packed. It was a sellout at both venues, and just really good. And again, there was that, boy, I want to beat these guys. But it was also the respect, at the end of the game that, you had for the other coach and the other team. So appreciate you sharing that.
Those were the perfect memories, and even adjectives, as you say, healthy, intense, and then respect. And I think of those three ingredients with a rivalry. And like I said, it took me a long time, but I can finally wear a red polo, Jake, finally.
Well, my last school, Maclay, they had a couple different shades of blue, and one of those blues was a Highlands blue. And I'm looking at that first time, and I'm going, Okay.
I love it. I love it.
Hey, for our listeners, once again, we're visiting with Jim Good. We're going to take another quick break, but please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to thank Sideline Interactive for their support. It's becoming harder and harder to fund an athletic department, but Sideline Interactive's indoor scoring tables and video boards can generate $10,000 or more every year while creating excitement in the gym and the ultimate game day experience for your athletes. Go to sidelineinteractive.com or call them at 832-786-0302 to schedule a live web demo and see their tables and boards in action. You can also email them at sales@sidelineinteractive.com. That's sales@sidelineinteractive.com and find out exactly what their fantastic products can do for you. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. We're visiting with Jim Good, the assistant AD from Boca Raton Christian in Boca, Florida. Jim, one of the things we like to do with the podcast is this idea of sharing best practices. So I'm going to put you on the spot. What are some things that you've seen over your career, either at Highlands or now at Boca, that you can look at with equal parts pride and humility and say, boy, we really do a good job with this? Do you have any best practices you can share?
Well, thanks, Jake. I think the first thing that comes to my mind, just relating to the two schools that I've been at, and being a school around 700 students, 800 students, to have a successful athletic program of that size, you have to share your athletes. And so that's one of the first thing that comes to my mind. So I guess in leadership, it's the idea of educating our coaches, because as a coach, we can be selfish and we think about our team, our program, and that's necessarily not wrong, but to have a bigger vision of who the Blazers are, who the Knights are, and the overall athletic program. So I would say in both schools that I've been at is this idea of sharing athletes. And it wasn't always perfect, wasn't always pretty, but we've gotten better as we educated our coaches to be a successful athletic program. That's one thing that came to my mind. I guess piggybacking off of that would be this idea that we would love to have coaches meetings. And when I first took over the athletic director's position at Highlands, it was around 2012. I was the assistant AD for about 5 years. And meetings, let's just say meetings are meetings, and you have to have meetings. And what I tried to do is I changed the focus of our meeting and had a coaches social. And what I tried to do is invite the wives or the husbands, the spouses of these coaches, because it's a tag team effort. And I know you can relate to that. I am grateful for my wife, a supporter. Eve has been by my side through 25 years. And what I did is tried to make this meeting more casual and get to know the coaches as people. And I'll tell you what, that really broke down walls, broke down barriers that even led into sharing our athletes, because now the football coach got to meet the volleyball coach, the basketball coach got to meet the soccer coach, and then find out who their wife is, who their husband is. And then you had them coming and supporting them at their games. And then they wanted to come and support it for their games. And it built that culture, it built that family. So having that coaches social rather than just a coaches meeting really, I think, helped us out. And then even a third thing, piggyback off the coaches meeting, is our parent meetings. When we started implementing parent meetings, and again, not just a meeting, but a meet and greet. As I did that with basketball, and kind of had a barbecue, had a cookout, and now you get to meet these parents. The parents get to meet the coach. I would bring my wife, I would bring my kids, and they got to see me as a dad. They got to see me as a husband rather than just the AD and the coach. And that just broke down walls, broke down barriers. So I think of that, just, man, if you can set up those coaches socials, parent socials, and I use that word social, we know it's a meeting. We got to get information out. We got to get contact information, rules, guidelines, but having food involved really gets people in there, and they kind of have a dessert, have some coffee, and those things I thought were really good, that helped us out in our programs that I've been a part of.
And again, you hit on a key point there. The relationships that exist, across the levels, between programs, within programs, so very important. And, you hit it on the head about the sharing and the multi-sport experience. We know that playing multiple sports is the best thing. It makes them better in their favorite sport, and it also helps avoid those injuries from overuse and year round. So, great stuff. Thanks for sharing.
Thank you.
For our listeners, we're visiting with Jim Good. We're going to take another quick break, but please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We also want to thank Wall of Fame by Vital Signs for their support of the podcast. Wall of Fame is on a mission to bring your school's legacy to life. They provide a variety of interactive touchscreen video consoles, along with an extensive library of templates to make it easier than ever to recognize the athletic achievements of your students, both past and present. For ideas on how to showcase your school's diverse history, along with your proudest moments, go to vitalsignswalloffame.com. Or to learn more, get started with your digital Wall of Fame tribute. Call them at 614-981-3589, or you can email them at sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. That's sales@vitalsignswalloffame.com. Welcome back, everyone, to the Educational AD Podcast. We're visiting with Jim Good, a good friend, and currently the assistant AD at Boca Raton Christian. But Jim, you were sharing with me that you've got a new opportunity coming up. So share with our listeners what's next on Jim Good's path.
Well, again, Jake, thanks for having me, man. I'm really enjoying our conversation, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit. As you heard, I was at Highlands Christian for 22 years, and now I'm finishing up my third year here at Boca Raton Christian. And so as I look back over that 25-year career as a PE teacher, working in athletics as an assistant AD, so now as I finish up year 3 here at Boca Raton Christian, I look back, and as a individual of faith, I know God is sovereign. He's in control of all things, and he has just been preparing me for this next chapter on my journey. And so about a year ago, I was introduced to an amazing organization, a nonprofit Christian organization, a ministry called Nations of Coaches. And the platform of Nations of Coaches is to impact college men's basketball coaches for the glory of God. And so we get to develop relationships, connect, equip these college basketball coaches as they serve their student athletes. And so I'm humbled. I'm grateful. As I've mentioned before, I'm nervous, but I'm excited as God has this all planned out. And I was named the regional director of Florida. And so I'll be transitioning in July. So I'm finishing out these last few weeks here at Boca Raton and fulfilling my responsibilities as the assistant AD, but looking forward to what God has planned. And I guess my purpose and role would be to serve these college men basketball coaches in our state. So anywhere from FAU in our backyard, to Lynn University, down to Miami, up to Florida, Florida State. And we have 13 Division I men's basketball programs. We have over 13 Division II programs, several NAIA and Christian colleges and JUCOs. And so I'm excited about this new role and what God has planned for me. So thank you for allowing me to share that. Nations of Coaches is the organization.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I could tell as you were sharing that with me, earlier before you came on. I think I sensed that excitement to, maybe get back into basketball and, definitely, with your ministry. Very cool. We'll do this at the end, but if somebody wanted to find out more about the program or just reach out to you and pick your brain, what's the best way that they can get a hold of you?
I appreciate that. Well, the Nations of Coaches website would be a great tool to go to and just navigate through that. So nationsofcoaches.com. And then the best email I'll give out is coachgood15@gmail.com. So coachgood15@gmail.com. And just to throw in there, here's what happens now, Jake. It's no longer about the X's and O's. It's about relationships. And you heard that. And it's not just addition now, it's multiplication. So God has this plan for my life to influence these coaches. And now the coaches influence impacting their players. And wow, what a awesome opportunity. So again, thank you for allowing me to share that.
Oh, no, absolutely. Okay. Jim Good. Okay. This has been so cool. Reconnecting, talking about the old days and finding out about, the new path that you've been called to, but we're not done yet. We always like to wrap up with what we call the athletic director's toolbox. You certainly know your way around the world of athletics, but in just a minute, I'm going to ask you to send out a brand new athletic director on their very first job. And I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. We're going to take a quick break and hear from our Toolbox sponsor, Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack. And then we're going to come back and find out what Jim Good is going to put in his new AD toolbox. Please stay with us. This is the Educational AD Podcast. We really want to say thanks to Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack for sponsoring the AD Toolbox segment of the podcast. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack are a quick, easy, and affordable way for you to collect comprehensive data that allows you to evaluate and improve your entire athletic program. Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack also connects you with the 95% of the parents and the student athletes who really love your program. And it gives them a voice to help demonstrate the importance that a positive athletic experience has for them. Go to athleticsurveys.com and check out their testimonials. And then give them a call at 1-800-738-6466. Or you can email them at info@athleticsurveys.com to get started. If you never used a survey to take the pulse of your parents or your student athletes, you're really missing out. Talk to the folks at Athletic Surveys by Lifetrack and let them show you how to take your athletic program from good to great. Welcome back, everyone. It's that time. We've been visiting with Jim Good, currently the Assistant Athletic Director of Boca Raton Christian, but on the verge of a brand new great adventure. Jim, what tools are you going to put into your new Athletic Director toolbox?
All right. Again, thanks for that question. Enjoying our time here, Jake, and connecting. I'm going to give 3 very general things, and then I'll go back and maybe give a little more specifics. But number 1, connect. Number 2, serve. Number 3, available. And when I say connect, here's what I'm talking about. I remember as a younger coach, a younger AD, being afraid to ask for help, thinking that I knew it all. I'm the leader. I'm the head coach. I'm the new AD. And I had to lay aside my pride and say, I don't got it all together. What are other people doing? And so I can remember actually making phone calls. And I would suggest new athletic directors call the other school and say, man, hey, I'm the new AD. Let me introduce myself. What do you do about, tryouts? What do you do about parent meetings? I have this situation, and I know those ADs that have been doing it a while would love to share their practices. They would love to. Going out to coffee and say, hey, can I treat you to a cup of coffee? I got like 4 questions. Can I just ask you as I'm transitioning into this new role? And so, emails are good, texts are good, but that face-to-face communication and that relationships and those phone calls, when you're confirming games, when you're talking about transportation, now you have a face, you have a voice with who you're connecting with. So I would say, number 1, connect, not being afraid to ask for help. I said, number 2, serve. When coaches, your staff, the ones who work for you, see that you are a leader that wants to serve, they will respect that. I think sometimes we have this idea about leadership, like I said before, being on top of the mountain. And there's going to be times where you need to direct and you need to, call people up, but there's going to be sometimes you got to get down in there with them and you need to connect. The best principals are the former teachers. The best ADs are the former coaches. They live that life. So being able to connect with the coaches, having those pre-meetings, those post-meetings, those mid-season meetings, those are ones we forget about. Hey, what's going well? What are your challenges? And be ready for honest feedback. Be ready to say, listen, tell me, what are your challenges? What are your struggles? What's going well? How, as an athletic director or department, can we do better to serve you and your needs? Again, sometimes I think we're afraid to be vulnerable and find out what our weaknesses are. So connect, serve. And then that third one, I said, be available. Got to show up. You got to be visible. I wrote down, it's easy to be at that Friday night football game. It's easy to be at that big basketball game, that volleyball district. But what about that tennis match? What about that cross country meet? What about that swim meet? And I've learned that those parents, man, this is their world. Their student, whether it's we use the word minor sport, major sport, man, it's a major sport to those families and those kids. And you can't be at everything. We know that. But man, I tried to go to a golf match. I tried to go to a tennis match. I tried to go to a swim meet. And when you're visible and available, man, those parents, they notice. Those student athletes, they make notice of their leader, their AD being available. I'm going to give a fourth that's very hands-on, and I'll stop in there. But one thing that we've done over the years is anytime you could publicly recognize and appreciate people, it means the world. So we started a program called our Athlete of the Week. And Chick-fil-A is always a gracious donor, sponsor. And so we would get complimentary gift cards. And so once a week in our schools, we would have chapel and we would present our Athletes of the Weeks. And so that was just a great opportunity to showcase our different sports. And again, football, basketball, baseball, but then also, hey, our swimmer of the week, our cross country, our golfer, and then just that recognition and appreciation, calling them up in chapel and getting the Athlete of the Week, and then posting that on social media, school website, bulletin boards, wherever you can do that. Man, recognition and appreciation goes a long way. So Athletes of the Week was a plus for us.
Oh, absolutely. I looking back to those days at Coral Springs Christian, somebody that, Mark Butler,
Yep.
he was very big on Chick-fil-A. Every time I hear Chick-fil-A, I see Mark Butler hawking Chick-fil-A sandwiches at lunch. But very, very cool stuff. Once again, Jim, if one of our listeners wants to reach out and pick your brain or find out more about, your new direction, how do they get in touch with you?
All right. I guess the best thing we'll do, coachgood15@gmail.com. Love to connect with you on that. Any questions, any concerns, if I can be a help. And then the new ministry that we're really trying to get that name out is Nations of Coaches. And so nationsofcoaches.com, a website, you can navigate through that, find out a little more about the ministry, the vision, and what we're all about. So again, thank you, Jake.
Oh, no, thank you. Jim Good and nationsofcoaches.com. Thanks so much for being on the podcast.
I've enjoyed it. Thank you again for what you're doing. And I've really, I mean this, really enjoyed our conversation time together.
No, right back at you, my friend. For our listeners, remember the Zoom recordings of these interviews get uploaded to the Educational AD Podcast YouTube channel. We appreciate you listening. Come back just about every single day for new content on the Educational AD Podcast. And as always, we want to thank Hometown Ticketing for their support. Hometown Ticketing is the leading digital ticketing provider for schools and colleges. And you can find out more about what Hometown Ticketing can do for you and your program by going to hometownticketing.com. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing.